Now when we classify about the types of resources, broadly speaking, we can say there are three major types: natural resources, human-made resources and human resources. When I say natural resources are those resources which come directly from the nature. So green plants, trees, vegetables, fruits are natural resources. Human-made resources are the resources that we have built up. For example, bridges, roads, machinery, vehicles, all these are built with use of technology. And finally, you have the most important resource, that is the human resource itself, that is we the people with knowledge and skill have the quantity and the ability to work around various issues. And development of human resources is what is known as HRD, or human resource development. It aims at improving the quality of people's skill. So how we can bring betterment in the various fields is what is governed under HRD. So this is the basic classification to understand the types of resources. Now let's move on to a detailed classification for natural resource. I can say natural resources can be classified based on various aspects. So based on the development, I can say there can be actual resources or potential resources. Actual resources are those resources which are actually present on the earth. So for example, I can say availability of coal in Germany's Ruhr area, availability of iron ore in Kudramukh in India. So all these are actual resources which are known and present. However, there are potential resources, the entire quantity of which is unknown. For example, we say we have huge uranium reserves in Ladakh region in India. In the past, windmills were considered as a potential resource, but now you have numerous windmills installed in the regions of Netherlands. In India, you have in Gujarat and Tamil Nadu coast, you have numerous windmills, and these have become, these are now not a potential resource but have become an actual resource now, because we really know the presence of these resources. So this is what is the actual resource and the potential resource. Now based on origin of resource, we can say there can be two types of resources. These can be either biotic or abiotic. Biotic are those which are derived from living plants or animals. So they are derived from living organisms. However, abiotic are non-living. So examples of abiotic include soil, rocks, minerals, etc. Now the next classification is based on distribution. I can say some of the resources are present throughout the globe. For example, air, water, these are present throughout the globe, and the things which are present universally are known as ubiquitous. So these are known as ubiquitous resources, or resources which are present globally. I can find them in each and every corner of the earth. On the other hand, you have localized resources which are present in specific regions. For example, you have copper resources, iron resources, and similar other mineral resources which are present in specific locations. So you have either localized resources or ubiquitous resources based on the distribution of the resources. Finally, there is another important classification based on its use. I can say it's renewable resources or non-renewable resources. Renewable resources are those which can be renewed and reused one after the another. For example, sunlight, water, wind, waves. These are some of the renewable resources which can be used and which can be replenished. However, there are other resources which have limited stocks and get exhausted. So once they are exhausted, we no more have them. A common example for non-renewable resource would be coal, oil reserves, iron ore deposits. So all these are non-renewable resources. That means once exhausted, you cannot bring them again. So we have another classification, that is renewable and non-renewable. Now based on this, we also have a common term which is stock of resource. Stock of resource implies the available amount of resource that is there for use. So whatever amount of resource we have for use is known as stock, and the distribution of resources throughout the world depends on various parameters like the terrain, climate, altitude, and so on and so forth. Now another important criteria for understanding resources, how do we conserve our resources or how do we protect our resources. A common example would be, I can say, not to switch on a tap if you are not using it. So running water is a kind of wastage. So that's a kind of effort to conserve the resources. A very simple example. However, there are other ways where you can